So I was re-looking at the motion for protection order from this case from long ago, the one pertaining to the family tree and the IGG stuff. And the reason that I was looking at it again, even though it's old, is because I wanted to have that hindsight of having seen the hearing in terms of the IGG stuff and see if that can supplement my reading of the motion for protection order in any way. And what stood out to me particularly was this. Um, and what they're basically trying to say here is, well, I mean, you can see what they're saying is that, um, Brian Koberger is not being accused of being related to somebody, he's being accused of having committed these crimes. And this is important because it is actually central to what they're saying and what they've been saying for a while, which is that it's the consequence that matters, and at the end of the day, the DNA matches up. Um, so focus on the fact that he's being accused of committing the crime and not being accused of being related to somebody. So I was trying to figure out, like, is this a reasonable argument? Like, is this an acceptable thing to say? And at first I thought, well, like, maybe. But then I decided I wanted to look at it a little bit closer, just, from like an analytical perspective, especially in terms of how an investigation is supposed to work. So, in an investigation, there are a few central roles. And one of the most important roles is the role of the perpetrator. And then another important role is the role of the accused person. And it's the job of the investigator, and in a way the state, but the investigator, to show that the same person fills these two roles simultaneously. And the perpetrator is the most independent role because it won't change. The perpetrator will always be the perpetrator. It doesn't matter if they're caught, not caught, if somebody's arrested, nobody's arrested. Whatever happens, that person will always be who they are. There's nothing we can do about it. That's just their existence. But the accused is a role that is sort of assigned and tested by law enforcement, if you will, because it's something that starts off unknown and then it has to be found out, and explored and confirmed. So if you think about it, how do they go about linking this perpetrator to the eventual accused? And I think that the best way to try and understand it is that they have to find an abstract role in between these two things, and that is the suspect. Now, this role of suspect is kind of temporary, right? Because you use it to get to the accused. And then once you've gone to that next phase of things and you have your accused, then that suspect role kind of falls away. So it's transitional, it's that bridge between the perpetrator and the accused. And it's also experimental. It it has to be tested, it has to be investigated, and unlike the perpetrator role, it can change. So the first part of an investigation is using the crime to find out as much as you can about the perpetrator and then taking these characteristics and assigning them to your abstract suspect so that you can start getting a better understanding of who you might be dealing with. And once you've done this, then you can start testing the identity of potential individuals against this abstract suspect to see if they do or don't fit. And you'll keep doing this until you find somebody who does fit. And they have to fit in a way that is beyond a reasonable doubt that the perpetrator could be anybody else but them. So, let's say you take all of the characteristics of your suspect that you've gathered from your investigation of the crime and you literally like plot them on a graph, a line graph or something. Then the person that you are eventually going to accuse is going to be probably the person who fits each or fits the intersection of each of these characteristics. And if you try and plot your accused first and then just, you know, draw lines around him, it's eventually going to show. You can have a perfectly valid looking case, but with unsound facts, one would hope that it will crumble in court. Because each of these lines needs to be correct, it needs to be logical, it has to be verified. So, coming back to this, I would say yes, practically, he is just being accused of committing these 4 crimes. That's like the real world implication. And yes, I understand that a court is a real world activity. So a statement like this might be acceptable in that context. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to stand the test of logic. Because Brian Koberger is not only being accused of doing something, as I understand it, he is also being accused of being someone. He is being accused of being the person who fits the characteristics of the abstract suspect so perfectly that the perpetrator cannot be anybody else but him. And it is detrimental if there is an issue with one of these characteristics. Because these are the characteristics that qualify him to be the perpetrator. And they have to all fit. Look at what happens when you take away one of these characteristics. You're left with more options as to who could be your suspect. And you're going to have to start again. You're going to have to reassess something that will distinguish your eventual accused from other people that have these characteristics. Now, there's this attempt at some kind of a consequentialist kind of vibe here that, you know, the results are the results. That's what matters. The process is just, you know, really doesn't matter. It's the consequence that matters. At the end of the day, you know, DNA matches up. So the consequence that matters. But, I mean, like, the consequence of what exactly? Because how was this even established? Specifically, what happened here? I would really like to know, like, what initiated this change? If you look at the hearing, Bill Thompson uses the word transferred, which makes it sound all very routine. But here, if you read the footnote, it seems more like things were left unfinished, which I would imagine is not very routine. So, I mean, I would be quite interested to know how this happened. Was the FBI invited to get involved, or were they like just in the area and they were like, hey, let's help? Did the private lab, encounter a problem? Or were they compelled to hand things over? Did they not want to work on this anymore? How does this work? And was this incomplete work sent to the FBI for them to finish? Or did they start over? These are important questions if you're trying to determine the accuracy of what might have gone on here. Especially, again, if you look at the behavior of Bill Thompson in the hearing, I get the impression that this here is the sore point. And Taylor tested it a little bit. She touched on it to see what happened, and I think that his behavior is indicative of the fact that there's some kind of secrecy around this. And I mean, if you think that this statement from the original motion is normal, then I really don't know what to tell you. But I will let you listen to Mr. Bill Thompson a little bit.
Work began with the private lab, and then there was a transfer to the private lab, from the private lab to the FBI, and there were also reports the private lab prepared, preliminary reports that were sent to the Idaho State Police Laboratory, and they all address the same things and overlap. And so it would be, from our perspective, because we've been trying to sort through this ourselves, we're inviting confusion for the court if you don't have everything in front of you, if you're just trying to look at this piecemeal. I mean, we're happy to give it to you however your honor wants. It's just a heads up that your review before having everything is not going to be particularly productive.
Now, would you say that what you just heard in that clip is the same as what's written here? Because that's not the impression I'm getting. I am getting the impression that from this document, I'm getting the impression that there was some kind of an issue and the FBI had to take over. But from the hearing, it's kind of like everything's fine, stop looking here. I don't know. Let me know if that's what you guys are feeling as well. But I think that it's important because back to this motion, if we are looking at the state's claim that this is about protecting innocent family members who've done nothing wrong other than being related to the accused and should be protected, I can't help but wonder why that same courtesy isn't extended to Brian Koberger's father. Why is the PCA saying that he was the route to find the accused? Why are they naming and shaming? Why are they detailing how they went through his trash? Why is his face in a body cam footage? I mean, what distinguishes different types of family and what qualifies different types of family for different types of protection? Perhaps a father of the accused needs more protection than a cousin that was used in a family tree. Why is it not the same? They're not being treated the same. It's not a crime to be on a family tree. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. What is the issue? And how is this okay? Anyway, as usual, let me know what you think and have a wonderful day. Also, as usual.